Hello, everybody. This is the third edition of the new pod about union rights. The pod is called "There's Power in the Union," and in the previous discussions, we have talked about the situation in Hong Kong and the situation in Myanmar. My name is Jesper Bengtsson, and I'm kind of moderating these conversations. Today, we will talk about the situation for unions in another country that has been very much in the focus of the news during the past year, and that is Belarus. And for this conversation, I have with me Inga Näslund, who is working at the Olof Palme International Center, and Edward Vochmin, or Vochmin. I'm very bad at pronunciation of your name, I realize that, but you're from the labor school. How do you say your name?
Vochmin.
Vochmin, that's what I thought, actually, yes.
You know, there is a Rida in Russia, Vochma. It's title of Rida.
Okay, I see. You know, when I talk to people from other countries, they never get my last name because there are too many consonants in it. N, G, T, S, S, so, you know, they never worked out. Anyway, tell me, we've heard a lot about the situation in Belarus and the situation for civil society organizations in Belarus over the past year. What is it like right now? Can you describe that? Inga Näslund first.
Well, everyone remembers the absolutely astonishing pictures from last year when lots of workplaces in Belarus, they were striking, and they had meetings in the yard of the factories, and even at one point Lukashenko, the so-called president, came to one company and all the workers were shouting, you should leave, you should leave, you should leave, ukhadi, ukhadi, ukhadi. And that he didn't expect that. And there were lots of strikes, the walkouts from the companies. And what happened after that was that there was a lot of repression on these people that organized those actions. And at this point, there is a very, very difficult situation for the people in the companies. They are many of them were expelled. They lost their jobs. Many are also in prison. So it's a very, very hard situation at this moment.
Edward, is this also your image of what's happening right now?
We are talking about Belarus concerning about labor movements.
Yes.
For me, I explain the process. For me, it's another step of destroying of former Soviet system of trade unions. You know, in Soviet Union, there was very strange situation. These unions were a part of government mechanism.
Yeah.
And in Belarus, past 20 years, this system was rebuilt, and all official unions in Belarus are part of government mechanism, government system. And last year, civil protest, it included some kind of demanded destroy this government system. And so this concerning about the unions. Unions should be independent. We know about it. It's some kind of idea. It's an ideal.
Yeah.
And people tried in last year to destroy this system, but it's it's failed. Say honestly.
Yeah. Yeah. So actually, there has never been any free trade unions in Belarus. That's what you're saying.
There were, of course, some independent unions in Belarus. In the very beginning of 90s, then Soviet Union was crushed. There was some kind of window of opportunity for all countries. And there were some very good independent trade union initiatives and that time. But afterward, the situation getting worse and worse. And if we compare free independent unions, these some kind of plans, the plans were appeared, but very difficult to grow up.
Yeah.
And all past years, they were trying to survive.
Yes, yes. Inga, yes.
Yes. There are a couple, as Edward says, there are a couple of independent trade unions in Belarus. They are in a very, very difficult situation. As Edward said, they have a problem to officially grow, at least. They are kind of in between the state and the people. I mean, they try to organize and to grow, but they are confronted with hard repression from society. And have been. I mean, this is not new for this year. It has been like that for many years. And we have had trade union leaders in prison or imprisoned at home, as they call it in Belarus, when they have some kind of house arrest, as we call it in Swedish. But it's not that it has become any easier this year, because the situation overall in Belarus is so difficult at the moment.
But these, as I guess, quite small independent unions, then, how do they work in relation to the more state-controlled unions? Because I guess most of the workers are members of the state control because they have to be, I guess.
Yes, Edward. Yes.
You know, when we are talking about unions, about labor movements, my position is that we are no pay attention to the economics, to the what kind of enterprise there are in Belarus. And the situation is there are some kind of post-Soviet economy. It's not a market economy. It's you know, every time when I talk to activists from the plants, from Belarus, it's a huge automobile building, so on, trucks, plants, and even when I talked with workers of oil transforming enterprises and some chemicals, huge chemicals enterprises, all of them said me, you can imagine what archaic our enterprises are. There is no profits. There is no some kind of economic sense in some kind of distributive economy. Soviet Union 2.0, and all workers working at these enterprises are in the trap. They some kind of paternalistic relationship, this regime, this government, so on, and they, of course, a lot of peoples goes to Lithuania, to Poland, to other European countries, and I'm sure most of Belarus workers want to work in such kind of enterprises.
Yeah.
For example, in Czech Republic, in Slovakia, in Slovenia, and so on. And a lot of Belarusian citizens are working now at these enterprises, and they are have very close relations. And no doubt, most of the workers want to work at such these enterprises. But how to transform from this situation in Belarus to that? It's this is the main problem. And workers, you know, some trade union leaders suppose that workers are a little bit passive, maybe some kind of avoided of struggle and so on, so on. I'm not agree with that. I think that workers are very, very smart, but smart not in verbs, in their behavior. And we have no some kind of real way to that. And nobody can proclaim it. How we will change situation? And it's some kind of trap. We want to be like in Poland, for example, but how to do it?
I wanted to add that as Edward says it, I mean, Belarus is differing from many other post-Soviet countries is that the state, everything is more or less owned by state still. There was a small private sector, but it is crushed now because that was IT and some tourism and so on. And after the fake president elections last year and all the protests, most of them left. So the IT sector has either emigrated to neighboring countries like Ukraine or Lithuania, or they were closed up by Lukashenko, and some of the people still in Belarus, they are now in prison, the leaders of IT industry. But still there is a lot of factories, and as we have learned this year, is that there are a lot more import of Belarusian things to Sweden and to Europe than we could ever imagine. Of course, their main trade partner is Russia, but still we are importing a lot of things. And what you should remember when you buy, for example, Belarus tractors from Belarus, is that this is directly support of the Lukashenko regime. And of course, there are dual feelings within Belarus about the sanctions. Most people are for sanctions, and parallel with both the independent trade unions and the state trade unions, there have been a growing movement of strike committees, in Belarus, and they have a very risky situation. Of course, many of them have lost their jobs, as I said, and they are sitting and waiting to be arrested or have fled the country, but they are still existing. And these people who are directly from the workplaces, they are for sanctions. I have talked to many of them, and they are very much. They say that the West has to help, has to isolate the regime in every way, also in an economical way.
You describe a lot about how they are now under great pressure, both these strike committees and also the individuals who has been active in independent unions. Can you describe a bit more on that? Because I have heard so many stories from different parts of the civil society now of fear of the security police and arrests, and they spend these like 10 or 12 days in prison, and then they are free again, but under constant threat to be arrested again. Is that the same situation for union activists?
Yes, and the thing is that, as in many of the post-Soviet countries, at least before this year, the legislation, the workers' rights and so on paper, it was not that bad. I mean, you had some defense from being fired and so on. But of course, in practical life, that didn't work also, because many had short-time contracts where it was written, if you are activist, political, or trade union, you can lose your job. And the contracts were very often on short term, 6 months, 1 year. So they were, as Edik is, they were in a trap. I mean, you had your work, but you couldn't do anything. And this year, they also changed the legislation. This former, really maybe on paper good legislation with roots in Soviet times. And now it is totally illegal to do these things. And you can not only be fired, you can be prosecuted. If you, for example, start a strike, you are more or less a terrorist. So they have really also in this area, you know, Jesper, who has a lot of contacts with the journalists and writers and so on, you know how this has hit the cultural sector and the free media sector. It's the same in trade unions, maybe not as vocal because they don't have the same voice as cultural workers or journalists. But in silence, they are very, very much suffering, and people are arrested for very small things. You can be arrested in Belarus for having a bracelet in white and red. This can mean that you get. I saw a girl who recorded a dance with a white and red flag by a Soviet monument. She was now sentenced to 2 years for criminal. This was criminal according to the Belarus. And this is happening, of course, in the trade union area also. It's a very suppressive, very repressive regime. We have a new European North Korea, 1,000 kilometers from Stockholm. That is the truth.
But still, does people dare to be activists in the union sector? Are they still kind of defining themselves as that, or are they too afraid now?
Let me to try to explain this situation. I've visited for some seminars in Belarus for 20 years, and I've been there in different times. And you know the situation. Most of all workers are in official unions. It does not mean all of them support this union. It's some kind of pragmatic behavior. Yeah. All benefits, all some kind of things you have to survive. Yeah. You can get it only being in these unions. That's why people in these unions. It's absolutely like in Soviet Union. It's absolutely. I've been a member of Soviet Union. Yeah, in the end of in the beginning of 80s, and I remember it. You have no choice, and we should understand very clear. In these unions, there are a lot of very progressive workers, very progressive people, and they want more democracy, and we want some kind of European way of country. And last year August showed us that thousands of former official members of official unions went out of these unions and go to independent unions. They were it's about 10,000 workers. It's huge number. And after that, they became for 4 months real activists. I've never seen there but we can understand when you go to struggle, to civil struggle, to some kind of demonstration, meetings, supporting each other. For 4 months, they became real, good, outstanding activists, trade union activists. It's impossible to reach such a level of activism through seminars in auditorium, so on, and reading books and watching videos, so on. It's some kind of, you go to this army, and some kind of special education. It's not education, it's practicals. But after that, regime in Belarus absolutely mobilizate. They consolidate, and they this regime is getting more pressure, more dictator, and so on, so on, so on.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people were trying to find out how to behave, how to be activist at enterprise level. And they create a lot of technology, methods, and actions, and so on, so on. But after that, the regime, it's consolidated absolutely. Government, police, and so on. All of them are very consolidated, and we are trying to. When we saw some kind of new methods, new actions, they tuning their system and catch them. And all last this year we saw that it's some kind of huge Leviathan catching a small activist group all the country. And now the state system, Lukashenko regime, is winning, I think, unfortunately.
Yeah. So is there any, you think, any future for independent unions at all in Belarus?
It's a very difficult question, very difficult question. You know, there is some kind of split between traditional independent unions that are trying to survive till 90s. And, you know, their leaders proclaimed against economic sanction. They refused to support some kind of sanction against government, against economy. But after that, leaders of civil protest, they said you are playing at the side of Lukashenko regime. It's really conflict. It's split. It's you know, it's very difficult to how to say it, to see the perspective. And I think
the future, the perspective in Russian is to see a future for
a future. Yes. And I think this is a tragedy situation. It seems there is no way because inside these independent unions can't to have some point of how to turn the situation. And I think a lot of it will be depend of some kind of external impulse.
I want to say that Lukashenko is winning, and maybe in some ways he is, but it is very costly. It's a very costly victory. He couldn't do this without money, especially from Russia, of course, and also with the money that he actually makes on trade with, for example, Sweden. So we have to what is the so roll call, I would say, from the Belarusian alternative leadership outside of Belarus, the actually elected president Svetlana Tikhanovskaya and every other civil society organization that you talk to, is that we have to go together and isolate this regime, and also make pressure on the Russians in Kremlin that they stop support this absolutely oppressive regime. And they are doing worse and worse things. And where does this end? I mean, they haven't, in Belarus has a history of partisan fight against the Germans, for example, when they were occupied. And many people in Belarus are comparing the situation to the German occupation. Not, of course, in deaths and violence maybe was very, of course, much harsher during the war, but still the level of oppression is across. It's horrifying. And you know this. I mean, you know they even managed to liquidate the writers' union of Belarus, something that even Stalin didn't do. So I mean, it's on a level incomprehensible, I would say. But we can't give up. They don't give up. The Belarusians, you say, can they be activists? They are activists. The strike committees still meet. They find ways. They are very, very, what do you say? They do new things all the time. For example, I heard now when Lukashenko regime has found how to stop maybe internet and social media things, they're going back to the roots and make paper leaflets and things on paper, because that is better. You can't trace. If you make a leaflet and hand it out, you can't really say who did it. I mean, it's much harder than even a Facebook post, because people are arrested for Facebook posts and Twitter posts at the moment. If you like a Twitter post, there was a very much reported murder, I would say, by KGB murdered a civil person in his apartment a month ago, I think it was. And people who criticized KGB for this on Twitter, they were of course arrested. People who liked their posts with criticism have been arrested. So it's a level of oppression that you haven't seen. But still, they find new ways to protest. And I am so amazed by this civil resistance that still live in Belarus. And even if they are winning at the moment, it's a very, very expensive victory. And I don't think this will last. I hope it won't last.
Yeah. These geopolitical context, you know, there are some plans in Russian authority to join Belarus to Russia in different forms. This is the main risk to the independent labor movements in Belarus, and it's very difficult to resist not only Belarus authority. You in reality they are resisting to Russian authorities that is much more stronger, and so on. But I think I would underline some points. The civil resistance in Belarus last year and this year, it's outstanding. Absolutely outstanding. I would say I'm trade union trainer and consultant, but I should say this is the example for unions in all post-Soviet countries. Unions, even independent unions in post-Soviet countries, they are trying to be involved in traditional system of communications with authorities. They want to be some kind of part of committees about regulations, trade union relations, so on. But civil protest, it's some kind of example how unions, independent unions should do. They should build horizontal sets and some kind of communications. They should find independent resources for their activity. Not only due from members, from others. They should active as a maybe underlines organization, maybe to find and build very strong coalition, these others organizations. That's the future. And of course, there are a lot of very good young activists and in Belarus. And it's some kind of, how to say it? I would say, we would say in Russia, it's gold zapas, zolotoy zapas.
It's a golden reserve. It's a gold reserve.
Yeah, golden reserve. It's if anybody, any organizations, any people would help to Belarus independent unions, I would say, look at people, not maybe not to the structures. Look at the peoples. There are thousands very good, very smart, very outstanding activists, and there's some discussion between them how to what is our strategy, what should we do, and so on, so on. When we support a structure, we support some kind of tradition, and I would say it's critically important to support different people, and they I hope they will find a new strategy.
I think that was a very good final word, at least a glimpse of hope in a country that is otherwise maybe more like what you described, Inga, the European version of North Korea, which is a bleak perspective, but still, thank you very much for an interesting discussion. I know a lot more about unions in Belarus right now than I did before. Thank you very much, and thank you everyone who has watched and listened to this.
Thank you for having us.
Bye-bye.